Welcome back, Horror Fam, to day 20 of our Halloween countdown. October 20th. What happens on October 20th? By now, in Pennsylvania, things are getting cold and creepy. So tonight, I thought we'd go head first into stories of frozen terror. A small collection of stories that take place in the coldest, most terrifying settings. Maybe get yourself a warm tea or hot chocolate and a blanket as we turn off the lights and prepare for tonight's bone-chilling tales.
Hello Super Horror Fam. Today, I'll be sharing with you the legend of the ice witches. Hypothermia is a medical condition where your body is losing heat faster than it can make heat. It's very serious and can kill you. But have you ever wondered why certain symptoms of hypothermia don't make any sense? I mean, some definitely do. Shivering as your muscles trying to work to warm you up. But what about confusion, stumbling around, or suddenly having the need to take your clothes off? Well, I know one of the reasons why. Meet Dale. He's 20, in good health, and loves hiking. To give himself a longer holiday break, Dale took early start fall classes and late start winter classes. Pretty much he was out of college from the first week in December until mid-February, and he was loving it. He got home at least a week before most of his friends, so he was able to spend a week relaxing with his family, and once his old friends got back into town, his calendar filled up immediately. Every day he was going out, seeing people, just having a great time. This lasted through Christmas and New Year's. A week later, his friends began packing up to go back to school, and eventually Dale was back to it being just him and family. This didn't bother Dale, he liked his family, but after a few days he began getting really bored. As crazy as it sounds, he was missing college, his friends, and maybe even missing going to class. A little. But his idea for an extended winter break was so brilliant, it couldn't be a mistake. He just needed something to fill the time. He started thinking about what he was wishing for while at college. Mom's cooking, his bed, his room. Oh, and hiking. Dale's college was in the city. There were parks he could walk. But it wasn't the same. Just like that, all at once, Dale put on a pair of hiking boots, put some supplies in a backpack, and started for the door. His parents told him maybe he should plan this out a little better. Had Dale even checked the weather? What would he eat? Dale quickly turned around and made a bunch of sandwiches, put them in the backpack along with his other supplies, and took off. Dale knew the woods by his parents' house well. They were a big part of his childhood. When he was 11, he got his first kiss in the woods, courtesy of the spin the bottle game. In high school, he and his friends would camp by the lake, a mile and a half in, but there were trails all through those woods. One of them he hadn't seen all of was called 13 Mile Run. Dale and his friends had gone on 13 Mile Run before, but only went in a mile or so before turning around. There was a lot of talk in his high school about witches traveling up 13 Mile Run and performing animal sacrifices. They allegedly had a cottage up there where they could stay and make their potions. Dale didn't believe it. 13 miles was a long way to go to sacrifice something, but if there was something sacrificing animals in town, 13 Mile Run would be a good place to do it. Armed with his phones and supplies, and fueled by the thought of sitting in his room bored, he decided he'd do 13 Mile Run today. He got a late start, but figured the average hiker travels 2 miles an hour. With his experience, he should be able to maintain 3 miles an hour, and even if he got slowed down somewhere, he should be well on his way back as it got dark, putting him in familiar places. He'd be fine. The trail was beautiful, more beautiful than he imagined. Everything felt so untouched. Dale began wondering if the trail was even 13 miles. Maybe someone just placed a sign there to discourage people from walking there. Wouldn't that be funny? A beautiful 5-mile trail named 13 miles to keep people away. Dale chuckled to himself and pressed on, keeping up his good pace. 2 hours in, he stopped for a while to have a snack and enjoyed the untouched outdoors. He reasoned he probably traveled about 5 miles, so maybe the trail really was 13 miles and it wasn't just some trick. His cell phone was doing that thing where it said he had 1 bar but clearly didn't. He tried checking the weather, looking at the map. He even tried sending a short text. None of it worked. So Dale, still in good spirits, carried on walking 13-mile run. 2 hours later, he noticed things were getting really quiet. His pace had been slowed. He hadn't considered how much colder things are when traveling up the side of a mountain. He found himself very aware of any movement going on around him, and sadly not on where he was going. He heard something move behind him and spun around. Or he would have spun around if he didn't slip and fall down the side of the hill. It wasn't a very far drop, but Dale was banged up from it, and he landed in snow. Like his entire body and face was covered. The cold hit him like 1,000 needles. The snow instantly began melting against his warm face, and ice water was running down the front and back of his shirt. Dale looked up. What he slipped down was pretty much an ice slide. In his pack he had a tarp, a knife, and some fire starters. None of that would help him get back on the trail. He decided after the fall it would be best for him to head back home. He could always come back to 13-mile run another day. Because it didn't look safe for him to get back up on the trail, Dale decided to slowly make his way down the mountain. If he could find a place that connected him to the trail, all the better. He wasn't in terrible pain, but the fall left him a little sore, and the terrain was rough. He wondered if maybe he should have tried harder to get back on the trail. It was getting late, and every time the wind blew, that water that ran down his chest would sting him. He tried to increase his pace, but it was too little too late. All at once the sky became dark, and the wind started whipping around him. He was about to be caught outside in a winter storm. Quick as he could, he set up his tarp and started a fire. Thanks to the fire starters, getting the fire good and hot didn't take much time at all. But he was colder than ever, and the wind wouldn't stop. Dale opened his jacket, got his shirt and sweater off, and quickly zipped up again. His shirt and sweater were soaked. Was all that from snow? Maybe he was sweating before he fell. Either way, he figured if he used the fire to dry his clothes, he could put them back on, and he wouldn't be as cold anymore. He grabbed a stick and held his clothes close to the fire, but because of the wind, or maybe his shivering, he accidentally dropped his clothes onto the fire. Dale was in trouble. He was still extremely cold. All he could do was keep the fire burning hot. He pulled his arms in from his sleeves and began rubbing his body to warm up. Then he heard something. It sounded like a woman. His mind must have been playing tricks on him. There were no human tracks in the snow going up 13-mile run. Actually, he didn't remember seeing even animal tracks recently. He looked out into the darkness, beyond the fire, but he didn't see anything. He went into his backpack. It still had a pretty good amount of food thanks to the sandwiches. The storm couldn't last forever. With enough calories and fire, he would be fine. As he ate, he heard crying. A woman crying? Maybe that wasn't the wind earlier. Maybe there was a woman nearby. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Is anyone out there? Are you okay? Are you hurt?" He heard a reply. The crying woman. She said she was lost and afraid she would freeze to death. I have a fire and some food," Dale replied.
"I can't find you,"
the voice called back. It was already dark. The fire was a good size. It should help her find him. He was sure of it. The two of them should be fine together and be able to safely descend the mountain after the storm passed.
"I found it."
Found what?
"There's a cabin here, and a fireplace. Come quick."
Dale needed to get to that cabin. The storm was getting worse. If he could warm up and rest, he would be much better off.
"There's some food here too. Come quick."
Make some noise so I can find you. Then Dale heard her singing. He left his bag and gear. He didn't want it to slow him down and took off in the direction of the voice. And very quickly found the cabin. There was a fire and food. He couldn't believe it. From running over, his socks and shoes were soaked. He took them off by the fire to dry them. but didn't put them too close so they wouldn't burn up by accident. They were able to warm up the canned soups by the fire and eat them. It was just really good luck that Dale and this woman crossed paths. Dale turned his jacket into a pillow and went to sleep. The next day, search parties went out looking for Dale. They followed his tracks and found him frozen in the ice. The authorities say he went crazy. Why else would he set fire to his clothing? Leave his food and fire and tarp shelter? Why did he take off his jacket and lay down in the ice? Anyone that knows about ice witches knows why.
What the hell is all of this? It's water, Dad! We need to be ready for the end of the world!
Years ago, my husband and I lived a mile deep in the woods. Our state had a terrible snow and ice storm, and we were without power for several days. The temps were in the 20s, and the storm took down some trees, blocking us in. After the 5th night, the temps in the house were almost freezing. We were sitting in silence, staring at the candles. Suddenly, we both heard several people singing. And both at the same time asked, "Do you hear that?" It got louder and louder until they were right outside the house. We didn't move. It was frightening. We couldn't recognize the language they were singing in. And then, it suddenly stopped. When it was light out, my husband checked for footprints and found nothing. We had no idea what it was.
And that's a wrap for day 20, Horror Fam. I hope tonight's frozen terror story sent shivers down your spine and reminded you that sometimes the most terrifying things happen when the temperature drops. But don't let the cold freeze your Halloween spirit. We still got plenty more scares ahead as we count down to Halloween. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and join us for tomorrow's chilling stories. Until then, stay spooky, stay warm, and as always, take good care of yourselves.